Hi, everybody. Today we're going to discuss Chapter 7 from our textbook, Airwords, Writing Broadcast News in the Internet Age. This chapter is dedicated to the topic of using sound bites from interviews that we gathered. Remember when we wrote our voicers and we wrote a little bit of a commercial copy and PSAs? Those were just plain scripts that you wrote, but we all understand that we conduct interviews, as we said, for two reasons. One is to use it as a Q&A, plain as it is, maybe with some editing, which we're not doing in this class because this class is only about writing. And the second purpose is to pull some cuts from here and to create a news package. So how to use sound bites from those interviews. Adding the sound, as the book says, is a major change. Adding an actuality is a major change because the actuality will not only add to the meaning, but also push the story forward, create an atmosphere, create immediacy, bring the emotion, and bring the credibility of the actual source of that information speaking to the audience rather than you narrating, you rephrasing what the source was saying. So we need to be aware of what the actualities contain. And when we're writing our script to indicate the place where the actualities would be going, we need to be aware of a chance of repetition. Let's say your source is talking about apples and says, apples are very popular fruits in New York, and it's not a coincidence that New York City is called the Big Apple. And so if you want to write a script in which you say, Apple expert John Smith says it's not a coincidence that New York City is called an apple, and then we insert the tape into that narrative, the person says exactly the same thing using the same words, it will be redundant. So in order to avoid redundancy and to avoid abruptness, you need to lead into an actuality, but do so in a way that does not repeat the words, does not say the words that the audience is going to hear, but introduces what the source is going to say. For example, leading Apple specialist Joe Smith says it's natural that the state has the state is interested in apples, or it's natural that the state would use apple as a symbol, something that does not repeat the words in the actuality. So you really need to lead into it. And if you notice, when I said Apple expert, New York State Apple expert, it's a joke, of course, but you can use titles before the names to indicate the person's relevance, the person's role in your story, because you apparently went to an expert, in this case, expert in fruit, expert in agriculture, and you can also use other titles such as director of agricultural business or director of a lab that develops new sorts of apples. But it's easier to say Apple expert, New York Apple expert, or an abbreviated title. So we're going back to what we already know from the Associated Press style, and I think we've had this conversation before. People would tend to give you a very expanded version of their titles because they don't know better. They're not in the business of news, but they're in the business of doing their jobs. And so their exact title is what they know about their jobs. And you should not dismiss that. You should take it down. But then for your audience, you're only taking what's relevant and you're eliminating the parts that will not add to your meaning, the story. So a big convoluted title can be translated as a spokesperson, as an expert, or you can say agriculture, uh, professor of agriculture, let's say faculty are usually called agriculture professor, political science professor. This is what I'm used to, but other titles can be abbreviated into something more casual and something more understandable to the audience. So, placing the bytes within your stories, you need to write up, you need to identify the person, you need to introduce the statement of a person, and um, your statements should be short, general, and clear, of course, like the rest of your language. Getting to the byte, getting to the soundbite when you get close to the soundbite in your story. Usually in broadcast writing, there isn't much room to include a lot of detail and a lot of text. So everything is happening quickly. And more importantly, I would remind you that we pick one focus at a time. Each one of your small stories, especially in a newscast, will have one focal point, one idea, and hardly anything else. One big idea with a soundbite and closing. If you were to build a package or a longer story, longer documentary, again, the principle is for each actuality, for each piece of tape, you'll be using a little bit of script to contain that tape, to introduce it, to explain it, and to come out of it and to bridge it with the rest of the story. So I will suggest that you look at chapter 7 very closely, because the book is conveniently built as a workbook where you can write with your pencil and then erase it. And it actually clearly shows you how to use the sound bites and how to organize them, how to package them. So in your writing exercises, you will be receiving my feedback, but these are the main points. Each actuality needs to be introduced properly, briefly, with the person's title identified before we hear the voice of the speaker, and it is necessary to say that name just before we hear the voice. So don't keep too long. After you say the name, don't make people wait for too long until they actually hear the voice, because otherwise the memory will fade. People may join you during the minute or so when you're absent or you're not saying the name. People may be joining you at that point, or people may forget, people may get distracted. So the name and the voice should be very close together to help audience members who just joined you or who may be doing other things while listening to you to keep track of your story. The other thing in the mechanics of writing is the way we indicated in our script, in our copy, and I think there will be written guidance, of course, for all of you from me. However, it's not bad to repeat it that before the actuality, you indicate the name of the speaker, the length of the cut. Sometimes you have an in cue and sometimes an out cue. Those mean the first and the last phrases or words. Those words are helping you when you play an actuality on the air, while on the air, reading a story, then playing a little bit of audio, and then reading the rest of the story, sort of inserting that audio in your live broadcast, so to speak. Well, when there was live broadcast, or a lot of it. So to identify the tape, you need to know the in cue. If I'm playing it, I hear the words that are also in the script. Aha, this is a match, this is the tape, this is the piece of audio that I will be playing here. Or even when you're editing, that also helps. In and out. For in, when you hear the first couple of words, this is the actuality that needs to go here. It's easy to recognize. The out cue it will allow you to recognize the end of that actuality if you're going live, or just to keep track of what's where. There is a very important habit that goes into audio and video production classes, not here, but I need to remind you here as well because a lot of you will be taking those classes. It's always important to keep good track of which files are where. Keep your files, be it audio, video, or be it written files, keep them in good order in folders with proper labeling, and keep your work labeled properly with your name. It's not too much to expect for me when I download somebody's voicer to see your name on it. It could be like Thompson Voicer, so that I can keep them in my folder and give you feedback, because sometimes I would send it back to you. It's easier to recognize your voicer and not to confuse it with someone else's. So what I'm really trying to say here is that all pieces of tape, all pieces of writing, all the materials that you create as a student and as a professional, no matter what format, no matter what medium, all your materials need to be organized by category, by story, by purpose, by speaker, and kept in folders that are properly labeled. And in those folders, your files should be organized in a manner that allows easy sorting and easy finding. The worst thing that can happen to a professional is to lose track of which file is what. And this is not some empty conversation, because in production, in writing, and in editing, especially in revising your work, which is something that uniquely happens in news, many revisions, many versions of the same story, because you can have one version for 6 o'clock, another version for 7 o'clock, different angles, different focal points, different approaches. It's important to mark everything properly by the content. And the worst thing that can happen to any sort of professional, any field, in any field, is to have duplicates and clones of your files with 1 and 2 and 3 in brackets. Let's say file XYZ1, file XYZ2, and they all look the same, but they're numbered 1 and 2 because they're the generations of your edits, and that creates a total mess. So going back to our connection to our news story, organizing the bytes, the sound bite will be organized, will be labeled by the name of the speaker, and those sound bites will have numbers too. Johnson 1, Johnson 2, Johnson 3, but not that 1, 2, 3 that the computer assigns to clones. I'm talking about 1, 2, 3 that you assign to the files, labeling them properly, and indicating in and out, and maybe sometimes giving them a nickname: Johnson Apple, Johnson Pear, Johnson Sleeping. Different topics, different labels, different nicknames, and those will match the description when you put those cuts in the story. I know that this part is really confusing to all of you, but keep this in mind when you start working on actual production, in production classes. And now when you're writing your stories, you'll have different versions of them. Remember that proper labeling and proper saving hygiene will save you a lot of trouble and a lot of embarrassment from not being able to find the right file. And also in this case, in theory, when we're inserting actualities, not to insert the wrong actuality into your story by mistake, because it's not properly labeled. Okay, so thank you for listening today, and I will see you next time.